Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's town hall featuring distinguished alumni Robin Whitney. My name is Jennifer Hall, and I am the Director of Development for the University of Toledo Foundation, where I work specifically for the College of Engineering. As everyone's getting settled and guests continue to join us, I'll take this opportunity to share some quick housekeeping notes. You may have noticed already that you're unable to see the names of other guests. That's by design, and rest assured that the host and the presenters have visibility. You will, however, see your own name in the attendee list, which is also by design. As promised for today's presentation, you will be able to submit questions directly to Dean Toole throughout the event. The best way to do this is to use the chat box, which will be monitored throughout the session. To access the chat box, go to the bottom right corner of your screen and click on the chat icon. Once you do that, the chat panel will appear. Also, if you want to change the view on your screen, go to the right upper corner where you can click to expand or reduce. Now, enough housekeeping, let's switch gears and get things started by turning things over to the Dean of the College of Engineering, Mike Toole.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I appreciate it. And thank you again. Jennifer has been the one who's really been instigating these town halls with her good ideas and suggestions. And so we appreciate that. I've enjoyed them. Hope you've enjoyed some of the ones that you've listened in as well. And they're all recorded, so you can check it on the website. I'm really looking forward to today because it's a friend and an alumnus of the College of Engineering that we are particularly proud of. And of course, what's going to be special about today is the insights and the stories that she's going to share about things that are near and dear to our heart, like in the Toledo region. So very, very exciting to be here. And our special guest, of course, is Miss Robin Whitney. And I'm just going to pull up her bio a little bit here to get a sense for her background. As many of you know, she is the Chief Strategic Planning and Real Estate Officer for ProMedica Health System. I think one of the best health systems in our nation, but maybe I'm biased a little by that. It's a not-for-profit integrated healthcare organization and is, of course, headquartered right here in Toledo. So in her job, Robin is in charge of and responsible for all strategy, real estate, and construction for the organization, which includes 13 acute care facilities in Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan, and over 300 post-acute care facilities in 27 states. So it's certainly not limited here to Toledo. Robin is also responsible for the efforts related to social determinants of health, government relations, advocacy, and philanthropy. So quite a bandwidth there that she has in large areas. She received her Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering degree from University of Toledo and her MBA from a little school down south of here a little bit. Some people might have heard of it, Bowling Green State University. She is a proud professional engineer licensed here in Ohio. She previously was employed with the Lathrop Company, Dillon Corporation, and the city of Toledo prior to joining ProMedica Health System. So I'll introduce her and listen to her in a second, but we also have some special guests who are going to help us kind of introduce and share some insights into into Robin. And the first one is another friend and alumnus that I'm very proud of, and that is Ms. Lori Adams. Lori is a managing principal and traffic engineer at DGL Consulting Engineers, which has been a partner with us on the Technology Takes the Wheel. But Lori's been a partner and advocate for the College of Engineering and so many other things. She is also a 1986 civil engineering graduate, same year as Robin from the University of Toledo. She is a professional engineer also. She is a professional transportation operations engineer and a professional transportation planner. So quite the credentials that Lori has. She's a member of the College of Engineering Development Committee, the Civil Engineering Industrial Advisory Board, and is president of the Engineering Alumni Affiliate. And 2 years ago, I was very proud to be one of many people who nominated her successfully. She was awarded the Toledo Engineer of the Year from the Toledo Society of Professional Engineers. So Lori, thank you for being with us today, and turn it over to you now to share your thoughts.
Thanks, Mike. Oprah Winfrey said, "Your greatness is not what you have, it is what you give." And Robin has been a stalwart supporter of the University of Toledo in our community for as long as I can remember. We met at UT in the early 80s and we became fast friends. And her community involvement became evident back then when she had the leadership of the American Society of Civil Engineer student chapter. She recruited me to join the engineering affiliate about 20 years ago. And I can say that getting involved and working side by side with her and our board has been a great experience. The engineering affiliate board extends its gratitude for Robin's involvement in connecting our alumni with the college. Robin's career path also shows her commitment to the community. At Dillon Corporation, she created beautiful spaces and places for people to workshop and live. Her time with the city of Toledo gave the city a vision for moving projects forward and getting things done. And now in her role with ProMedica, she's providing our community with health and wellness projects and initiatives. The bridge between the university and her career is evident. She is well deserving of this honor, and I am proud to call her a friend.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. And so now I'll turn it over to Dave Demetria. And for those who don't know, Dave, also a very successful engineering career and proud that he is an alum. He's president of Demetrica Jacobs Engineers, a Toledo-based firm specializing in the automation of water and wastewater facilities. Dave is a graduate from the College of Engineering, also civil engineering. He earned a bachelor's degree in 1980 and a master's degree in civil engineering from 1983. He's also a registered professional engineer in Ohio and in 6 other states. He's been a continuous active board member of the engineering affiliate of the UToledo Alumni Association, which is where I've gotten to know him well since the mid-'80s, and he's currently the president-elect of the UToledo Alumni Association for the entire university. So, Dave, thanks for what you do, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you. First, Dean Toole, I'd like to congratulate you on the selection of Robin as the distinguished alumni from our College of Engineering. I'm sure there's a lot out there that could be worthy, but I don't think there's anybody as worthy as Robin. In my world, y'all done good. Robin, your turn. Robin and I go back almost as long as I've known Robin, almost as long as Lori has. Back when the two of them were seniors in the College of Engineering, their involvement in the American Society of Civil Engineers student chapter, I was the liaison to the parent chapter at that time, a couple of years older than the two of them. Over the years, we've kept in contact, and I still call the two of them friends. Robin's involvement in the engineering alumni affiliate for, I don't know what, 20 years, shows her willingness to offer her time and her talent to the university. The work that she's done in her profession shows her willingness to offer those same traits to the Toledo area as a whole. Most recently, Robin was the president of the Alumni Association, of which I next year will become president of. Her guidance and leadership over her term got us through a new alumni director, a new president of the university, and got us through the beginning stages of this COVID pandemic. To be able to lead the Alumni Association during that time definitely shows the leadership that she has done over the years. Robin, on behalf of everybody that I know and that I might represent, I want to thank you for what you've done, not only for the university as a whole, but for the city of Toledo and the surrounding areas. Lori mentioned a lot of things that you've done. Thank you very much for your time, your talent, and your leadership. I'm glad you consider me a friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And for those who know Dave, you know that he probably was tempted to turn this into a roast of Robin, but we said, no, you're not going to go there today. So he'll do that unofficially. So thanks again, Lori and Dave, for sharing some ideas. And Robin, we're going to turn it over to you here and welcome you again. Congratulations. I will be celebrating more your selection as a distinguished alum for the college at a formal event in the future. So we'll hear a lot more about you in the future and your career. But today we're going to hear from you in your own words in a kind of conversational thing. And in particular, before, I know you've kindly prepared some slides about some of these neat projects and the things you've done. But before that, could we start it off? Because I had heard right when I got here about some of our who our famous alumni were, and I met you quickly, and somebody said gave a great set of remarks at a honors convocation. I think it was right before I got here, a year or two. And I said, well, what was it about? And they said something about, I remember nudges and lucky breaks and everything like that. So if you don't mind, start us off today with just what you said, if you remember, and what did you mean by the nudges you've received, the lucky breaks you've been given, and the lessons you've learned in your remarks?
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Mike, for having me. This was quite a humbling introduction with Lori and Dave. So thanks to both of you. You're such great friends of mine. And this has been a great journey together that we've had being involved in the university and doing other things in our community. So it's certainly been exciting. So yes, Mike, I did this presentation and really it was the first time I had to get up in front of people and just talk about my life. And I thought, I'm comfortable talking about the projects that I've worked on or different things like that. But talking about me, I don't know that I want to do that. So I did kind of look back and reflected on, what are the things that, caused me to want to become an engineer and, some of the things that have happened in my career. And I settled it into kind of a saying that said nudges, lucky breaks, and lessons learned. And, I thought about early on in my career in high school, before I really even knew what engineering was, the things that really got me to the path of becoming an engineer. And, I think a lot of it back in those days was a lack of confidence. When I was in seventh grade, they wanted to get me into algebra, and my teacher's nudging me to go into algebra, and I'm thinking, I can't do that. And but that nudge was what I needed to start down the path of really focusing on math and science. And those nudges occurred more in high school. I'm from Toledo. I went to Whitmer High School and got a great education at Whitmer that really prepared me well for the University of Toledo. And it was the nudges of other students that were in, at the time, they were not called honors classes. I think they were phase 4 classes, and everyone else was going in them. So I thought I better do that too. And so things like that were the nudges that I received. Some of the interesting lessons learned were more as I started in my career and could go into lots of details on those things, but really learned a lot about, the fact that when you graduate from college, you think you've got all this knowledge. Well, you don't really know a whole lot about life. You've learned some great things, but how to apply it and the things that we learn in the business world are just the amazing lessons that we all have to learn. And if there's students listening in, that's really maybe the one thing that I'd want to say to you is you just need to be open to lifelong learning. And if you do that, that will really help advance your career. If you want to act like you know it all, people can see right through that. And trust me, none of us know it all. So just some interesting things in that regard. So it was fun to think through some of those things that have happened that have nudged me along and taught me some career lessons. I'll recall one other one, and then we can talk about other things. When I was working in my first job, so I was probably 23 or 24 years old, I was working on a very large construction project. I went to work for the Lathrop Company out of school and really wanted to get field experience, common sense experience. And I worked for a young engineer, and he was really mad about something, and he wanted me to call the vendor and yell at them for him. And I realized I can't take your anger and put that on I can't pretend to be angry for someone just because you are. I think that's not something that's part of my character. And I worked with a really aggressive team that used, kind of yelling and intimidation on that first project. And I had one of the people that was on the project pull me aside and tell me, and I consider this a life lesson that I remember still to this day. He said, this isn't the only way to do a project. There are other ways. You can do it in in a way that's not so aggressive and argumentative. There are ways to team and do things differently. And he just planted a seed for me that lasted for a very long time. And I think it changed kind of my approach on projects. So a lot of those lessons learned kind of helped kind of guide my way.
Thank you. And as you were talking, I realized, I can't remember if you were on it, Robin, but about a month or so, I gave the alumni affiliates, engineering alumni affiliate staff, asked me to give a webinar on engineering ethics. And I applied it. They asked to do it on bidding issues. And I shared, because like you and we both have bid a lot of construction contracts and, negotiated them over the years. And I shared some things in my career when sometimes I was not, maybe was on the edge of the ethics now that I'm more familiar with it. Anyway, as I think about it, Robin, I have to imagine that you are a different person. And I have to say you're the most professional, your integrity is unquestioned. And I'm sure anybody who's worked with you would agree with that. So thank you for being a shining light on ethics, even in this kind of tough world sometimes of construction. Speaking of that and projects, because you're moving beyond construction into the whole facilities planning, acquisition, real estate, et cetera. You prepared some slides for us, I think. Could we
Sure.
see them now, if that's all right? And then
Absolutely.
don't forget, for those of you who have questions, you can add that to the chat. And then we'll hopefully get to those questions afterwards. So thanks, Robin, for sharing I'm looking forward to these.
Sure. So I'll fast forward a little bit. I talked about early in my career, and these slides really talk about what I've really been doing the last few years since I've been with ProMedica. So I joined ProMedica back in 2014, so it's been over 6 years now. And as you've already heard, who ProMedica is. But I want to maybe share a little bit more background about how ProMedica approaches their work and the mission of ProMedica, because it really does guide our work, and it really is amazing to be a part of this organization. Most people think about healthcare companies as hospitals and doctors' offices, and we certainly have all of those things. But we're proud to be really what's called an anchor institution in our community. And so anchor institutions are things like the University of Toledo and like ProMedica, where we're fixed here. We're not going anywhere. We can't pick up and move our plant or move our facilities. We're anchored here in this community. And we focus on the health of the community, not just within the walls of our institutions. So we think it's part of our mission to do that. We think that health really encompasses a lot of different things. You heard about social determinant work earlier. I'm in charge of that for our organization. And what that centers around are things like really thinking about the social circumstances that people have and how that affects their health. Things like hunger or housing insecurity. And I'll give you a quick example. If you're on limited income and you're diabetic and you have to choose between having the proper food to eat or your medication, that can really impact your health. Or if you can't buy the right foods in order to make sure you have the right diet. Those are the kinds of things that you have to think beyond just the clinical things and think about total care and the total person. And we also think about economic development, which is really centered around how do we make our community vibrant and how does that help the community and help the people and therefore connect to the mission that we have. So the slide that you see in front of you is the image on the right is from the early 1900s, the downtown area of the city of Toledo, and the images on the left are the steam plant. And many of you may have already seen a lot of this information about the steam plant project, but thought it would be worthwhile to go through this today. This is the historic waterfront, and this steam plant was vacant for about 30 years. Vanessa, you can advance to the next slide. And this next slide will show an interior image of that steam plant back in 2014. And our organization back then looked at this building and said, number one, we needed to consolidate all of our system folks into one location. We were scattered around Northwest Ohio in different buildings and in Southeast Michigan and in different buildings. And we needed to put everybody in one place. And we said, what if we do it downtown and in this building? What could that look like if we could transform our organization by combining people, also transform this old shuttered building and help revitalize the waterfront? So you kind of get this triple win if you do all of these things together. You can advance to the next slide, Vanessa. So we embarked on a whole project that really was catalytic for the downtown, where we renovated this steam plant. We added on to the building with a multi-phase plan to move 2,000 employees downtown. To be honest, we're still in the middle of that multi-phase project because we've got other folks that are still planning to move downtown in the next couple of years. Next slide. So this project was, I know I have a lot of fellow engineers on this call, so I figured you'd appreciate seeing the cool pictures of the construction, which really took the building almost down to its bones. We kept as much of the masonry brick that we could, but had to open up the side facing the river and replace the roof and completely transform this building. Next slide. This shows where we did try to save some of those walls, and unfortunately we couldn't save the smokestacks. This shows, if you recall some of the historic pictures, there were a lot of smokestacks. There were 4 smokestacks. We only had 2 when we bought it, and we had to take those down because of some structural issues with the stacks. It's a historic building, so we needed to follow all of the National Park Service and the State Historic Preservation Office, which was tedious but worth it. You know, we really liked the fact that we were able to keep the essence of the history of our community intact, and then, you know, create a space that would work for our offices. Next slide. So we added on to the building. This shows the steel going up back in October of 2016. This was an interesting project in that we could only do the steel up really 2 bays at a time because we needed to keep the integrity of the existing building in place. So structurally, we had a lot of challenges with trying to get the new up, take down some old, and make everything stay together through the whole process. Next slide. And so you can see it starting to come to completion. The interesting part was the addition is all glass, very open, it's perfect for an open office setting, creates natural light into the spaces, creates a wonderful collaborative space. I'll say pre and post COVID, because we don't have many people in the building right now, but we plan to next year as things evolve. Next slide. In addition to the buildings, we ended up adding a parking structure for our employees and doing renovations to the park next to the site. So Promenade Park is a wonderful gem of a park along the waterfront in downtown Toledo. It was tired and old. It really hadn't had many renovations to it. So we were able to seize on the opportunity of our project also being catalytic for this public space. So you see the renovations underway in this image, showing how the park evolved as well as the rest of the project. We're very thoughtful on where to put the parking, and also actually doubled the amount of green space that was downtown by putting green space on top of the underground parking area. Next slide, please. What's really important is not just building it, but creating energized space with programs that would allow it to really become just the gem that it really has with this waterfront development. It was interesting. The first week that we opened the building in 2000, we saw people, so many more people walking along the waterfront than had normally been out just walking at lunchtime. And I think that's the key. You create occupied space, then you create safe space and people feel comfortable being around it. So those things happen but activities in the park started to occur as well. Next slide. This slide shows one of the concerts that that we had in the park. So ProMedica has been the proud concert series since we came downtown in 2017. And this was they were canceled this past year because of COVID, but we're back on track next year for concerts to happen in the park. And I believe it's really brought a lot more people downtown for events and for activities that really many of us, Lori and Dave included, from our days after college, were able to go downtown and experience a party in the park, a rally by the river, and that's the different names. And there were restaurants and a lot of different options of things to do downtown, and some of that had gone away. So we're really excited to re-energize the waterfront and have these things come back to Toledo. Next slide. Not just concerts, there are things like this shows a farmer's market that was happening on Tuesdays in the summer. There was some art activities, that's what's shown on the left-hand side. Now there are so many more events happening in the downtown that I believe that our project really sparked a lot of these things. Next slide. So as an anchor institution, we've been involved in a lot of things. Those were probably the first was our project at the steam plant and Promenade Park. I'm not going to go through this whole list. That would probably bore everyone, but I really do. I'm excited and so fortunate to be involved in all of these projects that really do have an impact on our community. So we purchased the land that was known as the Marina District across the river from our headquarters, and started working immediately with the metro parks to put a park there. So we knew from a study that was done in downtown that we needed more green space for our community. Green space is important for your health. People need to get outside, get moving, get interacting out in the open space. So we felt this was very connected to our mission and our goals for the community. So we bought the property, and now most people know, and if you don't know, that the Metro Parks opened their first phase of a multi-phase project that will actually be a huge park in the Marina District, 55 acres, and a river walk on both sides of the river from the I-280 bridge to the Anthony Wayne Bridge. This is a huge transformative project for our community. And it all started with the notion of, could we do something different with the Marina District? One other project that's listed here is our work in the Uptown area. And I wanted to just bring that up because I've got a few more slides that talk about our exciting work there. I mentioned social determinants of health. We have some work going on in the Uptown neighborhood where we have really embedded ourselves into that community. We opened a grocery store in that neighborhood. This is a blighted community that's called a food desert, which means that the people in that community didn't have access to healthy fruits and vegetables and good food other than maybe a convenience store. So we've not only done that, we've opened a teaching kitchen. We've had, we're very fortunate to have a donor gift us money to open that store and do other things in the community that help with the housing needs and the transportation needs and the food needs and those types of things for folks in the community. So kind of like the Marina District, Vanessa, you can advance to the next slide. Maybe I'm jumping a little bit quick here. This one quickly shows that Glass City Riverwalk. It shows the Marina District having 360 new apartments and a restaurant. Those opened this past year. And even with COVID, that restaurant has been doing fantastic. So really can see some exciting images there of those projects in addition to some convention center modifications that are happening as well. Next slide, please. So when we think about that Uptown area, we see that as the next catalytic project for Northwest Ohio. So just like what we've done on the riverfront, which led to things like the Marina District and the Glass City Riverwalk, our work in this uptown area with social determinant work has really led us to think about how can we have a bolder impact on that community and bring other amenities to really prop it up. So our work in social determinants and personal determinants of health and health inequity are leading to some new innovative products. We're actually we're commercializing products that can be used to help these types of things. And so how do we advance those kinds of startup companies? How do we advance new innovative ideas? And how do we do that in a way that could promote minority and women-owned businesses, maybe folks that live in this community in the uptown neighborhood that have an idea of creating a business but don't really need to know where to start. So next slide, please. So we've been working with a few other community partners to create a vision for an innovation center, an incubator, if you will, that will connect business startups to the resources that they need to succeed. And as I said, promote minority and women-owned businesses. There are a lot of incubation spaces already in our community. There's a great one at the University of Toledo Engineering College. And so really it's not to replace those, but how do we supplement those with something that could be dynamic and help even more businesses start up? So it's a bold idea. Next slide will show the image of the facility that we are envisioning to do this with. This is the Jefferson Center it's at 14th and Jefferson in downtown Toledo. And this building, like the steam plant, has been closed for about 20 years. And we'd like to figure out a way to reinvigorate that and make that part of our community as well. So this, again, starts with kind of an idea of how we can renovate it and, truly foster some revitalization for that part of the community. And I think the last slide here shows, if you would advance it, shows an image of the interior of the building. So, this, if you can imagine, open space where we're bringing new and startup businesses together and providing the kinds of services in order to make them successful. But really thinking about businesses that may spring up from that part of the community. This is not designed to be everyone that could maybe transport into this space, but how do we find ways to engage the folks in the community, provide them with those resources, provide them with jobs that then help them with, with their health and well-being as well. So those are just a few slides, Mike, that kind of shows what the latest and greatest things are that I've been working on at ProMedica. And as you can see, we're pretty busy and always thinking about new ways that we can help the community.
That's great, Robin. Thank you so much for preparing those, because images really help things come alive. And I've got to say, I think all the things that you all done, especially the steam plant, it touches us with different experiences. So my wife Amy and I love to walk along the waterside, and we've gone there, and we happen to live next to Dr. Greg Casper, who you know, and Christina, and they are very much involved in that summer series. And so I remember we enjoyed a VIP seating at, I think it was Martina McBride, for a concert series. So lots of good memories down there. One of our audience members is Dr. Daphne Apul, who is our chair of civil and environmental engineering, your home department. And Daphne is a yoga enthusiast. So she said, thank you to ProMedica. She's really enjoyed some yoga festivals down that way. So again, we all have memories, which is very neat. I am also excited about the work at the Jefferson, which is shown there still on the screen. I'm a very avid squash player and active member at the Toledo Club right next door. And so I always looked at that beautiful building and thinking something needs to happen now. So I'm excited that it is going to happen. Hey, we've got some great questions, Robin, from people listening to it, and that's good. One of them I'll just kind of weave in there is from my friend Peter Hess, who is also a former distinguished alumni for the college. And so he just said, thank you for sharing your remarks. And he was wondering, what's your overall the professional accomplishment you are most proud of? I mean, you've just given us some great things, but is that it? Is it the STEAM plan? Is there anything else that you're most proud of from your career?
Uh, it's, I think the STEAM plant is probably the one that I am most proud of, but what's really exciting about it is it was really the culmination of so many other things that built up to that, being able to be, being successful at it. So, when I worked at Dillon Corporation, I was involved in creating Levis Commons in Perrysburg. So that absolutely is something else that I'm very, very proud of. And I learned so many things about not only development and the process to create projects like that, but learned a lot about creating a sense of place, really making sure that you created space that was walkable and livable and thought more broadly than just a building. And so those things stayed with me when I started working on the STEAM plant. So the STEAM plant, it was such a complex project, but I had that kind of baseline of things from my work at Dillon and my work at Lathrop. But I'd also just come from working at the city of Toledo. And so many projects like this really require kind of this public-private partnership. We were doing work in the city's park, and we were needing to do some things along the waterfront. And it really required a lot of interaction and negotiation with the city and other folks in the community. And I think that my time at the city really helped prepare me for that. So I think that's, I really, not many people get the opportunity to work on a project like the STEAM plant, and there were two buildings and the park. I mean, this is a huge, wonderful project that just had such an impact on the community too. So that's definitely my number one, I think.
Great. Could you mentioned Levis Commons, and somebody had asked, a couple people asked about that during their registration. Tell us more about Levis Commons and your role in that, and just about that project in general.
I will, and I'll give you a little bit of background. So I went to work for Larry Dillon back in oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember. I'm dating myself, 1996, and really to start working on real estate development. And I didn't have any background in real estate development, but he believed that I could do that and said he'd teach me. And so that was another, lesson learned, or maybe lucky break, to be honest, to get the opportunity to try something that I had not done before. Still used my engineering background and it used my construction management background, but I really then broadened and got to be exposed to a lot of other things. And we started working, Levis was Levis Park at the time. There was nothing there. It was a cornfield owned by Owens, Illinois. And OI trusted us to come up with some ideas of how to renovate that space. And we started visioning what ended up being the town center. And it became more than that. It started out with retail shops, but now, it's really expanded. And it really was the original vision to think about creating space for living and for dining and for shopping, and really kind of that holistic perspective. So I was really fortunate to be involved in all the aspects of that, building it, visioning it, thinking about all the nuances of how to make it financially feasible, how to make it walkable, how to think through all the parts that you need to do to make a successful business venture like that. So that opened back in 2004. So nice, exciting project. And at the time, Mike, before you were in Toledo, that was our first of its kind of town center, and there really isn't anything else like it in the area.
It's very special. And I remember when Amy and I, we ended up moving into Otter Hills, they said, because we can walk to work literally, but we looked very much down that way because it's just a neat area for sure. A couple of questions coming in about the Jefferson and the incubator. First of all, as you know, we have the Shaw Center for career development within the College of Engineering. And so somebody asked, could our co-op students maybe work with some of the future startups in there to help them a little bit. I thought that was a neat idea. And then related to it, Dr. Glenn Lipscomb, longtime very successful chair of chemical engineering at the college, said, hey, is it possible to do spaces that the community could access and maybe somehow collaborate both with the College of Engineering and the Toledo Museum of Art? So those are some other ideas. So I don't know if you've thought about any of those.
Well, that's a new one, although I think I love that idea, and it really does make sense with the proximity to the museum. And we really think of this project as that's the hub, but really creating this social innovation district. So yes, and the art museum is a part of that district, and the arts community is already present in that area. So I think that would be a natural. I will tell you that Dr. Postal is involved in our discussions on this entire innovation district. So we definitely have UT at our side in some of the thinking about this because, there have been other innovation districts throughout the state, throughout the country, to be honest. But Jobs Ohio is, a state entity that's really trying to promote innovation. And so we're working really closely with them to think about how do we do things that really make sense in our community and make sure that we're partnering with all the key organizations. So I might have to follow up and make sure I get all those ideas so that we can incorporate them into our planning.
Very good. Yeah. I sorry to keep talking about myself, but again, I'm a new Toledo. So Amy and I have been here about 3.5 years. And because we're empty nesters, didn't have a lot of friends. So we would see all these wonderful sites. And you mentioned the local community in the district. And sometimes I would tell people about what we did last weekend. And people are like, well, I've been here 20 years and I've never done that. If anybody has not been to the Old West End, right, and the festival and walk from the TMA, which is, of course, a world-class institution. Walk from the TMA up, north into the Old West End. They really ought to do that. I imagine you and Tim have spent some time down that way too. But between the architecture and everything like that, so anyway, that's something to think about. That. So a couple people have asked Robin about your path to get to UToledo and major in civil engineering. And then also the path onward, Lathrop and others, and then now as you've moved into management. And so a couple questions there. First of all, talk about any adversity that you faced. Unfortunately, sometimes the gender issues in STEM, including construction. And Dr. Gersel Serpin, our chair of electrical engineering, he said his daughter, who's 24, have actually experienced discouragement entering STEM when she was from her girlfriends. And so did you ever have any discouragement from your girlfriends heading to UToledo, but then talk about your time during Toledo and then afterwards? I know a lot there, but.
No, that's great. I'm just oblivious to some of the things because I just never thought a whole lot about being a female in a men's, world. I mean, Lori and I and Tracy, we were the 3 females that graduated together in civil engineering in 1986. And we knew that, but we didn't really think a whole lot of it. We just kind of went out and found our jobs. And the first thing I did was went and worked for a construction company. And I have friends that I know from my early days at Lathrop, and they said, boy, Robin, we thought when we saw you that those men were going to chew you up and you'd never survive. And it's like, well, I didn't experience that. I never felt like I really was in a men's world, but I also never I never had a chip on my shoulder. I never thought about that. I just did my job. I didn't try to I didn't want or need any special circumstances because I was a female. I wanted to be treated like, the professional that I was. So I think that it just didn't seem to have a big bearing on me. Now, as you think about it and you reflect back, are there things that, you say, wow, this is, something that could have been handled differently, perhaps, but I don't think of anything that really stuck in my mind as, any notable issues. Now, the nice thing about working for ProMedica, we have over 80% of our employees are female. We're in a very female-dominated sector, but we have strong female leadership on our team too, and it's just incredible to be surrounded by really, really smart females as well. So I don't know that I have lessons other than if you think of yourself as different, you might be treated differently. I think that we can celebrate that we're females. I'm not trying to say that, but I just focused on doing the right job and not thinking of it in any different way. I would ask questions if I didn't understand something. I never would try to hide that I knew the answer. If I didn't know something, I would ask questions. And I think that's the other lesson is don't ever be afraid of asking questions, because people know if you don't know something, you can't really cover it up. So I'm trying to think of what your other parts of the question were. Sorry about that, Mike.
Well, I think you've done it well. You said you just haven't faced the adversity, and maybe you ignored it. We do have to have a thick skin sometimes and ignore things that I'm not saying one should ignore all things, especially if there was inappropriate microaggressions or whatever. But you just kept moving forward and very successfully. Have you ever heard of that idea that other girls actually discouraging? Because I'll be honest, that's a new one to me. Discouraging their peers from going into STEM?
I think that, I think about this more as I raised a daughter. I've got 2 children, and my daughter is 27. And I always had a sense that it was easier for young women to kind of float through and be in the middle of the class, not to be the smart one. And I struggled with that. I almost felt like I'd need to tell her it's okay to be smart. And she is very smart. She's a mechanical engineer and she's a bright young woman. But I think that there are some things in society that are still making it difficult for women that excel. I can remember, people getting angry with me when, I'd get a really good grade on a test or something, and they didn't. But I don't know that it was female or not, but it certainly. I think it is. I think it still is. I think there's still barriers out there. So, not sure how to deal with it other than have that thick skin that you talked about.
Sure. People are very intrigued, as I am, with your very successful transition from, again, a civil engineer, technical background into management, and in particular, as you've done, real estate and kind of urban planning, and the fact that you've talked about you've had a special appreciation for space, right, and the aesthetic parts and the things that affect our lives, which is great. Tell us more about that path. How you got there. Again, you had an MBA along the way, and I'll be curious, was the MBA part of, had you started moving into management and then decided you need the MBA, or got the MBA and then moved into management, but also this idea of urban planning, because that is, that's a specialized degree. In fact, our previous president, Dr. Gaber, was an urban planner, had a degree, I think. So give us some advice, if you can, moving into management, and particularly, separately, I guess, moving into urban planning and real estate.
Sure. I've thought about this in the past, and I think there are 2 key things that happened in my career that maybe changed my trajectory into management. When I left Dillon and went to work for the city of Toledo, I went from working at a company of less than 20 people to managing a department of 65 people. And I hadn't had the management experience. I managed 2 people at any given time before that. And so that was a big jump for me and a wonderful opportunity for me to manage. Not only did I learn how to manage people, but I got more in a political kind of a role, because I'd have to present to city council and I'd work with the mayor on different initiatives. So I learned that, I can manage people. I felt pretty good about this. I felt like it really gave me the confidence to say that I could do those things. So that was that was a really important step in my career, was going to the city and getting that expertise, not only kind of I'll say political, I don't mean that in a negative way, but you have different issues when you're working for a public agency. So that public process was really interesting and a new learning opportunity for me as well. But the ability to manage folks and the other part of that I thought was really interesting, I didn't just learn this at the city, but the thing that I think really helps you in management is thinking through with a broader perspective. So I recall when I worked at Dillon, I would sometimes, I remember being frustrated that I had made a recommendation and my boss didn't take my recommendation. How dare he, right? I know best, right? Well, what I learned over time was that my perspective was an important one to give, but there were multiple other perspectives. And I had to learn that and not get frustrated that, nobody's listening to me. Well, my perspective may have been more from a technical perspective. There were financial, there were, market, there were other issues that, or other relationships that came to bear. And it really wasn't until I started being a manager that I could fully appreciate that. So, when I worked at the city, my technical folks underneath me would give me their technical answer. Well, there might have been other things. Maybe there was, the city council member really wanted something different because the community was asking for something different. So I had to weigh those things and then make a decision. And so you've got to make decisions that sometimes aren't going to be popular with everyone, particularly your own team, but you need to start looking at all the different perspectives. And I think that was really, continues to be, an area where we can all learn from. And then getting so I went to work for the city of Toledo, and about a year later, 2 years later, I decided to go back to school to get my MBA. And that felt that was a little tougher than what it might seem right now. I didn't know how I would, how I would be going back to school and really getting in that learning environment. And so number one, it was a great experience. Really felt good to be back in the classroom, and it was in a cohort type of an arrangement. So I learned from the other students in the room. But I also learned some pretty important things. I had to take a class on HR. And you start understanding the hiring practices and the legalities and some of the challenges that come with, human resources and that part of an organization. I took a marketing class. It's like, wow, I had not taken marketing when I was in engineering, but amazing to really think through some of those other aspects of business that I hadn't been exposed to. So those are the things that I think really helped me.
Very good. Thank you. Going back to, some people asked about, hey, tell us more about the non-real estate and non-urban planning or construction. And I want to go back to the social determinants of health, which you've mentioned a couple times, but it seems so important, not only because of healthcare is such a huge kind of weight, you might say, on our economy. And I don't mean that too negatively, but let's face it, we need to do better on that. Tom and Betsy Brady, stalwart leaders in our community, very focused on K through 12, and their role that by having that, leveraging that to help with many things, including Tom posted a question. Tell us about how that K through 12 is related to social determinants of health. Does it start that young, and is there things we can leverage that young?
Absolutely. It starts incredibly young. You could go into a complete dialogue about generational poverty and those types of challenges that, young children that are, if you're brought up in an environment that, you don't know what it's like to have healthy meals or regular, food on the table, or even consistent housing, that the things that we all generally take for granted, the horror stories that are out there of, kids that move from house to house, and then they're moving from school district to school district, and they're not maybe having, like I said, if they're not having food on the table, they're coming to school hungry. Are they really going to be able to learn? So a lot of the challenges that we have, and there's figures about these things, we do not have children in our community going into kindergarten that are ready for kindergarten. So the things that Tom and Betsy are working on are so important, because the pre-K initiative is a huge issue. It's a broad issue. It's happening in many cities across our nation, but we in Toledo need to focus on that, because there are things that we need to do that are going to help folks now, or think about ways now. But if we don't think about 4-year-olds and starting to invest in our new generation, we're going to have these challenges, 10, 20 years from now. So I think it's amazing how it's all connected, and it's complex. It's much easier in the healthcare world if somebody has, a healthcare ailment, just to fix that ailment and send them out the door. It's a lot more challenging to think about, well, are you in a safe home environment? Do you have lead in your home? Do you have food? And it's been interesting to see even our physicians, at first some of those things were very uncomfortable for them to ask. And now they're starting to see the benefits of doing these things, and that you can think about these other solutions for families that really will have a lasting impact on their health.
Great, thank you. So I knew this was going to happen. The hour was going to fly by here, and I'm sorry, but we've got 2 minutes left. There were a number of questions about COVID and how it's affecting ProMedica. One person asked how it's affecting the design of your future facilities. Another asked, how do you building that sense of community downtown, even though we can't be together? But what's your thoughts on ProMedica and COVID and how it's affected your job, I guess?
It's a great question. We are still fighting the fight. In fact, I heard that, the levels have spiked up again here in Toledo. So our hospitals are very strained right now. So it's been difficult, but we have such an amazing team that knows how to, fight the fight. So, some of the things that happened back in the spring have really propelled some things that needed to be propelled, like telemedicine. People were getting online and doing this for their doctor's visits. And I think those are things that were smart to do. They have to happen, and maybe COVID can help propel that to make it happen, or make it more commonplace. I think that's one area that we're seeing, some new opportunities. Home services. We actually just started, it's called ProMedica Acute Care at Home, where we are trying to mimic hospital services in the home setting. And we literally just started this, and our first patient was a COVID patient that needed kind of what you would say is hospital care, but we were able to treat them at home. And we think that there's those kind of things are the areas where we can innovate and think differently. And so maybe COVID is helping to push some of these, regulatory things haven't allowed them to do. But I think those are probably the big things that we're working on. And then just day by day, making sure that we're taking care of people in the community right now, and trying to encourage the social distancing and all the things that we desperately need to do, because the hospitals are, there's a lot of people in the hospitals, and, we just need to all be mindful of that.
Very good. Well, I need to end now, unfortunately. Turn it back over to Jennifer Hall. Robin, I'll just say this. Thank you so much for being with us today. Toledo is such an awesome city. It's such an awesome region. It's from people who've worked so hard to make it. You are absolutely one of them. One of the questions that I wish we had time to answer is that Don Warner and others want to know, what's your future? 5 to 10 years, what are you going to be doing? I'll answer it. And that is more great things. I'm confident of that. More great things. So we look forward to seeing more of your leadership unfold. Thank you again for being with us. And Jennifer, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. As we close, I would like to thank Robin Whitney, one of our college's most remarkable alums, as you saw today, if you didn't already know, for not only educating us today, but providing us with inspiration. We are so delighted to honor Robin as this year's distinguished alum for our college. And of course, I would like to thank Dean Toole, who consistently moderates our town halls with ease. And last but not least, our friends Lori Adams and Dave Dimitrica, who were generous to share their personal experiences with Robin. And a big thank you to each of you in our audience for taking the time to participate in this exciting town hall honoring one of our college's most remarkable alums. We hope you will continue to join us for future town halls. And if you have specific ideas on what you would like to see, feel free to reach out to me directly. My contact information is on the foundation website and will also be in the email you receive after this town hall. Thank you again for staying in touch with us here at the College of Engineering, and we sure hope to see you again soon. Thank you.